Welcome back. You are watching KTN NewsDesk with me, Akisa Wandera. Let's cross over now and speak to our reporter, Cecilia Wakesho, who has been closely following up that story of the deportation of 72 people, 5 of them being Kenyan. Cecilia, thank you very much for joining us here on KTN NewsDesk. What are the latest developments as far as what communication the officials are giving us? All right. I understand we don't really have Wakesha. We'll be speaking to her in a bit. But still on that pact that has been signed with the Friends of Somalia, with Somalia in that one-day conference in London, let's delve more into it, or delve deeper into it. Joining me in studio once again, security analyst Richard Tudor. Earlier on, when we were having a conversation, you said that there are a lot of things that are involved in this war. So it is not given that once they have a very strong national army, that the Al-Shabaab will stop being a menace.
There is an enabling environment that has made Al-Shabaab to thrive in Somalia, that which cuts across. The environment is one of it. The economic is another thing. The issue of clanism in Somalia also creates an enabling environment for Al-Shabaab to thrive. And for all these factors, until all these factors are contained, there will still be a problem ahead. The other thing that the international community needs to look at is the issue of, yes, there are those Somalia who are outside Somalia itself. Like, for instance, there is the issue of refugees who are still currently being in this country. How do we return them back? Is it to be undertaken forcibly, or are they going to be encouraged? Are they going to be encouraged in a humane manner to go back into their country? Because if they are forcibly returned back into their country, they may end up again being radicalized easily and to join these Salafist groups in Somalia.
So how do they avoid that?
Now, the only way is that they have to be given incentives. Remember, some of these people, you are telling them to go to Somalia. They don't have somewhere to go back to. They don't have capacity to restart their lives. So until now, and these are the issues that in the international community needs to look at. Yes, how do we even establish schools? Because some of these people may refuse to go back because they don't have, like, for instance, better infrastructures, including hospitals, including schools, including even the roads themselves. So it is an issue that needs to be looked at a broader perspective, not just an issue of deploying the army, not just an issue of equipping the army, not just an issue of providing finances for the same. If we just look at it from a narrower thinking, then there is still a lot of problems ahead as far as reconstructing Somalia is concerned.
Coming back into the country, hypothetically speaking, once Somalia is settled with a national army that has very huge capabilities, and we might be seeing AMISOM now moving out of there, does it mean that, is it given that Kenya will now be free of the threat of Al-Shabaab?
It will depend with two factors. One is how will be Somalia by the time Kenya decides to withdraw? Will it have an up and running government? Remember, up to 2010, Somalia was among the failed states in the world. So if today Kenya withdraws and Somalia does not have a functioning government, when I talk of a functioning government, is a strong army, a strong police, a strong judiciary, and a strong parliament. If those ones are not there, and we withdraw today, regardless of what we are going to do as far as our homeland security is concerned, we'll still experience a lot of challenges. We'll still experience as a country a little bit of attacks from Somalia. The other factor is, yes, Somalia is stable, but as a country we withdraw. But we have not taken enough measures to protect our homeland security, to protect our borders. And when I talk of our borders let us look at even the ports that we have, both the airport and the harbor and all the other entry points into this country. As long as we have not protected or come up with a strategy on how we are going to protect all these entry points into this country, we will still have a problem. So these are the two factors that will determine whether our country will be safe once we withdraw our troops from Somalia.
This conference that was held in London was not the first one on Somalia. There were two others that were held before that. Actually, London was the third one. A number of analysts have said that, or pundits have said that they're just talk shops. So are we really expecting implementation of the pacts that have been signed yesterday?
I would say it will not be the first, or it will not be the last conference on Somalia, because what the international community is dealing with, it is dealing with a dynamic situation, a situation that keeps on evolving. It changes day by day, and it needs to keep on reviewing its strategy in Somalia and to come up with the strategies that are relevant to the prevailing situation by then. I think some people will look at it as a talk shop, but it might not attain all the objectives that it's required to attain, but at some percentage, it will attain. For instance, if we look at the issue of creating some resources to the troops that are serving, it has mobilized some resources for the same. Another thing at face value is that it has also created an awareness about what is happening in Somalia.
Yeah.
Now, the international community has been brought to the attention that, look, we have a problem in Somalia. And this problem in Somalia is a problem that cuts across. It is not just a Somalia problem. It is not a Kenyan problem. It is not an Ethiopian problem. It's not a Djibouti problem or a Ugandan problem. It's not an African problem. It is a global problem. So let us come up with a global solution.
So what does it take to come up with a strong national army for Somalia, keeping in mind that they have not had that for decades now?
There is always a process of developing or creating or restructuring an army. One, they will need to do what we call to recruit. Once they have recruited, they will need to train. Once they have trained, they will need to deploy them. Once they have deployed them, there is also the issue to do with resources. There is the issue to do with both software and hardware military resources. So unless all these things are projected in the discussion that is currently going in the UK, but the most important thing is timelines. Because for a long time, the international community has been talking about pacifying Somalia, restructuring the army, putting in place a functional judiciary. But one thing that has always been lacking is a particular time frame upon which all these things should and will be done. Yes.
All right, let's now take a look at that developing story that we have of an attack on quarry workers in Mandara, in one of the areas there. Our reporters are rushing to the ground. They will be giving us more details later on. But this is not the first time that a quarry is being attacked in the northeastern part. What is the relationship between these attacks and quarries?
I will say it is because, one, we don't learn from one. If what is happening is an attack, first of all.
Of course, of course.
If
because
what
we
is
still have
happening,
scanty information.
Yeah, the information is scanty. But if what is trickling in is an attack, then we need to ask ourselves, don't we learn? Or do we have a Wathrog-like security system? A Wathrog-like security system is a security system or a security measure that is put in place that tends to forget very fast. Because why would it be that every time there is an attack in Mandara, it is always a quarry? These are the questions that whoever is in charge of security, maybe in that principality, needs to ask himself, why a quarry? One reason could be that a quarry has always formed a softest target for an attack. So how do we harden it? Because severally, this is not the first time that such like an attack has happened. And if it is an attack, another thing that whoever is in charge of security in that area needs to ask himself, why this time around during the day? Maybe somebody somewhere wants to send a signal that, yes, we can still come for you, even during the day. regardless of what. So those are the things that need to be looked at.
But taking a look at how we have always handled attacks, especially in the north and in other parts of the country that have been seen to be terror attacks, how would you assess our capability in handling such situations?
There is a new concept as far as national security is concerned. And that new concept in terms of, as far as national security is concerned, is that concept that whoever is in charge of the national security should always think on a probabilistic manner. That yes, you have taken enough measures to contain things to do with insecurity. But just like some people will say that shit do happen. You have tried all that you can, but suppose it happens. Suppose an attack like that one in Mandara happens. What do you do? How do you mitigate its effect? Because some attacks may happen that maybe there could have been a very little number of casualties, but how you react to it can reduce or increase the number of casualties, so that we don't end up with what we experienced during the Garissa attack, whereby we had no mitigation measures in place.
So are we active or reactive in handling these things?
I think as a country, it will depend. It will depend from which school of thought, as far as national security is concerned, one looks at an issue. If you are a narrower, as far as national security is concerned, you will say that we are okay. But if you are a widener, as far as national security is concerned, then you will say there is a lot that still needs to be done.
All right, Richard, always a pleasure speaking to you here on NewsDesk. Thank you very much for coming in. Richard Tudor is a security analyst. Remember, we are trying to follow up a story of an attack in a quarry in Mandara, and we will definitely be bringing you more details on the same as we gather them on the ground. But remember, another big story of the day is the deportation of 72 people from the U.S., 5 of them being Kenyans. The others are Somalis, and police and immigration officials said that a private plane carrying the 72 individuals landed at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Our reporter Cecilia Wakesho was there when that particular plane was landing. She's been following up these developments. Let's now bring her in live from our city center studios for more information. Cecilia, from what you've gathered, what are the officials saying? Where have they taken these people?
Thank you very much, Akisa. Wandera, indeed, we've just come from Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, where at exactly 7:30 a.m. an international jet that was accompanied by American security officers arrived at JKIA, and on it there are 71 individuals or deportees. Among them there were 64 Somalis and 7 Kenyans. Among them was a woman. And immediately they arrived there, obviously, the Somalis were transferred to a local jet ready to be taken back to their country in Somali. But for the Kenyans, they were taken straight to the CID department, where they were able to record statement on what exactly surrounded their deportation. And what we picked from them, a couple of offenses surrounded their deportation. Among them, we had drunk driving. That was one of the major offenses that led to their deportation. We also had a case of sexual assault, Akisa, as well as robbery. But for the Somalis, the 64 Somalis, on the other hand, they also had several offenses surrounding them, and they came handcuffed. That is what we were made to understand. Remember, most of them, they are said to have very serious criminal charges, including robbery with violence and even sexual assault. So we were also able to speak to the OCPD, that is Zipporah Waweru at JKIA, who was telling us indeed they received a call yesterday from from American government telling them indeed today they should be receiving those 71 individuals. And she said most of them came from Alexandria in US, and telling us that when you receive such people, in most cases they've come straight straight from cell. They are remandees, and so maybe they were asked to choose between coming back to the country or going back to remand, but then probably they chose to come back. Because when you looked at most of them, we realized they had nothing with them. You expect someone who has been deported perhaps maybe to come prepared. You're coming back to your country, they've been away. One of them has been away as long as since 1996. But then one guy even was carrying a sack with, we wanted to understand what is in that sack, maybe 2 or 3 clothes. So it was a very serious kisa. And if you can remember, perhaps to bring you back, this is the second batch of deportees we are having since in a span of 5 months. In January this year, we also had 95 Somalis and 2 women who were also deported. Some saying maybe it's Trump maybe trying to enforce his policy. But again, if you can remember, there was a time when Trump even issued a ban on 6 Middle East countries and even Kenyan countries, among them Somali and Sudan. So perhaps this could be a crackdown on the same Akisa. But we're made to understand that when they come to the country, what happens here, they are not criminals. They are criminals in the US. So here they just record statements, and after that they were received by their relatives and they go back to their homes. But really, Akisa, we try to speak to some of them and they are very, very bitter. Some look traumatized. Someone coming from a foreign country or coming back to your country, you don't want to speak to anyone, but you could maybe understand the situation surrounding their deportation. So what we did, we just, maybe we just left them to calm down and maybe we could speak to them later on. But a majority of them really did not want to speak to us. In fact, they were shocked with us being around them. So Akisa, from the OCPD, this is a serious situation, and them, they have nothing to do but just to pick them and release them back to their homes because they have to cooperate with the whole exercise.
All right, Cecilia, thank you very much. I believe you'll be following up on that to just see where some of these people will go. You say some have been in the U.S. since 1996, quite a long time. Cecilia Wakesho, our reporter there, joining us from our city center studios. Now, the 30,000 tons of maize imported from Mexico have finally arrived at the port of Mombasa. The maize was imported from Mexico, and the government has said that a similar import is expected in the next 2 weeks. This is a move by the government to address the rising cost of unga.
Every month, Kenya consumes 3 million bags of maize. 800,000 of that actually goes to dairy, goes to animal feed. And so the initial position by government was to release all the white maize to be used by humans. And that is why the first step we took was to import the yellow maize, so that we could sort out the animal feeds and allow whatever is existing in the country to be used for human consumption. And this time, when we did the importation, government did not do the importation. It just waived duty so that the private sector could do the importation. The process took long, the situation wasn't. And the government took now the ultimate decision to remove duty on all maize to be imported into the country.
All the way from that, all schools in the islands of Zanzibar have been temporarily closed because of the flooding following weeks of heavy rains, says the Education Minister. The decision was taken for the safety of children and teachers after some schools were left submerged in water. The rains have also destroyed property and roads, and more than 350,000 students are currently enrolled in schools in the semi-autonomous region of Tanzania. Sudan's first Vice President and Prime Minister Bakri Hassan Saleh has announced the long-time-awaited national consensus government, including 31 ministers and 44 secretaries of state. The president also appointed 65 members of parliament representing the political groups that participate in the national dialogue. They will participate in the elaboration of a new constitution in line with the resolutions of the national document endorsed during the political process. Prime Minister Bakri Hassan Saleh read the names of the government cabinet members, stressing they have been appointed in consultation between the government and the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister said that the number of new cabinet ministers remains the same as the previous government at 31 ministers. He pointed they increased the number of state ministers to 44 posts to accommodate all the participants in the dialogue process. Now, at least 24 people were killed in India when a wall collapsed onto wedding guests. Now, 28 other people were injured, most suffering from head injuries. The 90-feet-long wall at the venue was built without proper support and had collapsed in heavy winds, police said. The dead included 11 women and 4 children. District authorities have decided to assemble a committee to investigate structural engineering at other wedding venues. And that's all we had lined up for you here on KTN NewsDesk. Many thanks for joining us. We end it at that point, paving way for business today, which comes in next. My name is Akisa Wandera. Good afternoon and keep it KTN News.